Hey everyone and welcome. Are you ready to really unpack the secrets to staying motivated? I mean, who isn't right?
Well, hey there. It's so good to be here. And yeah, I think everyone struggles with motivation from time to time.
For sure. So in this deep dive, we're going to be really digging into those oh so common motivation mistakes that, I think we've probably all made at some point. And the really cool thing is we're going to use this awesome piece called Five Biggest Motivation Mistakes and How to Fix Them to help us out.
Yes. I love that piece. It really gets into the nitty-gritty of what's happening in our brains when we're struggling to get things done. And most importantly, it gives us some seriously actionable tips for actually fixing those motivation mishaps.
Totally. It's not just theory, right?
Yeah.
It's about giving you guys the tools to boost your motivation in the real world. So shall we dive right in?
Let's do it.
All right, so mistake number one, the biggie, thinking you can just power through anything with willpower alone. I know I've definitely been there. You set a huge goal, maybe it's a New Year's resolution, and you're like, this time I'm going to stick with it. I've got this willpower thing down. But then life happens, right?
It always does, yeah. And then all of a sudden, things get tough and that initial burst of motivation just kind of fizzles out.
Like a sugar rush, up and then crash.
Yes, exactly. And there's actually a real scientific reason why that happens. It's called ego depletion. Researchers, like this guy, Roy Baumeister, found that willpower is kind of like a muscle. If you overuse it, it gets tired. So if you've spent all day making tough decisions at work or dealing with, stressful stuff, by the time evening rolls around, your willpower muscle is basically exhausted.
Oh, so that's why it's so hard to resist, that extra slice of pizza or skip that workout at the end of a long day. It's not that we're lazy or anything. It's just our willpower's tapped out.
Exactly. And that's why relying solely on willpower is, well, it's kind of setting yourself up for motivation burnout. It's like trying to run a marathon without any training, right? You might start strong, but you're probably going to hit a wall pretty quickly.
So true.
Yeah.
So what can we do instead? If willpower isn't the magic solution,
hmm
how do we actually, stay motivated when the going gets tough?
Well, one thing you can do is try to, tackle your most challenging tasks early in the day when your willpower is still fresh and recharged. It's also super helpful to remove those temptations. It's like out of sight, out of mind. If that bag of chips isn't staring you in the face, you're less likely to, give in to the craving.
So true. It's like, if you don't want to slip up, don't walk on ice.
Exactly. It's about setting yourself up for success, not for a willpower showdown.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we've optimized our environment. We're tackling the tough stuff early. But how do we make those positive actions more, automatic, less of a struggle each time?
That is where habits come in. This guy, Charles Duhigg, wrote this fantastic book called The Power of Habit, and he talks about how, when you form good habits, it actually reduces decision fatigue. And that basically means, you free up all this mental energy that you would have spent, debating with yourself. You're just on autopilot, which leaves you more willpower for other things.
Okay, so instead of white-knuckling it every time we want to make a good
No.
choice, we can kind of, use the power of habit to make those actions almost automatic. I like it. But how do we actually do that? What are some ways to actually, make those habits stick?
So one technique, and it's super powerful, is using implementation intentions. It sounds fancy, but it's basically like making a pre-commitment to a specific action. So for example, you could say, if it's Tuesday at 6 p.m., I'm going to the gym no matter what. You're not even giving yourself the option to waffle or negotiate. You've already decided.
Oh, so there's no room for, well, maybe I'll just go tomorrow, or I'm too tired today. It's like, boom, decision made. Love it. Okay, now let's move on to mistake number two, which is this idea of waiting for motivation to just magically appear before you. Take any action. I think we've all been there.
Oh, absolutely. It's so tempting, to just kind of sit around waiting for that burst of inspiration to hit before you start a project or tackle a goal. It's like, I'll start when I feel motivated.
Yep, totally guilty of that one. But here's the thing. Research actually suggests that it often works the other way around. Action often comes before motivation.
Exactly. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but often the simple act of just starting something, even if it's just in a small way, can be enough to spark that motivation. It's like, the engine of a car. Sometimes you got to turn the key and put it in gear before it really starts running smoothly.
Okay, mind officially blown. So how do we do this? How do we, get ourselves moving when we just don't feel like it?
I love this rule. It's called the do it anyway rule. It's simple. Even if you don't feel like tackling that task, commit to doing it anyway, even if it's just for A few minutes. Just start.
It's like what I call the 5-minute rule,
Yeah.
Tell yourself you'll work on something for just 5 minutes. You'd be surprised how often that's all it takes to get over that initial hump and actually start enjoying the task.
Yes, totally. That's the idea behind this concept called behavioral activation, which basically means that, like, sometimes the best way to actually feel motivated is to just start doing something, even if you don't feel like it at first.
Like tricking your brain into getting on board with the plan.
Right.
So like if you're staring at a blank page, completely dreading writing that report, just open the document, jot down a few bullet points, maybe read over some notes, just take one small action to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, that's a great example. It's like priming the pump for motivation, getting things flowing so that inspiration can follow.
I like that. Okay, I'm already feeling more motivated just talking about this. But what about when, like, the goals themselves are what's holding us back? That brings us to mistake number 3, setting vague or unrealistic goals.
Yes, the classic I want to be successful trap, right? Ambition is great, but without a clear roadmap, it's like trying to navigate a maze blindfolded.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the big picture and forget to, like, break things down into manageable steps.
Right, and that's why setting SMART goals is so important. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
So instead of, just saying, I want to exercise more, a
Mhm.
SMART goal would be like, I'll go for a 30-minute walk 3 times a week before work.
Yeah.
Something concrete, right?
Exactly. You've made it specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant to your overall goal of being healthier, and you've given it a time frame.
It takes the guesswork out of it. You have a clear target to aim for. But even with the SMART goal, tackling a huge project or aiming for a long-term goal can still feel kind of overwhelming, right? How do we break those down even further so they feel less, I don't know, daunting?
That's such a good point. It's really essential to, like, break down those larger goals into smaller milestones. It's like, those video games where you level up after completing a series of tasks. Each little win you get, it releases a little bit of dopamine in your brain, which is like a little reward that keeps you motivated to keep going.
Oh, there's that dopamine again. It's like those little bursts of like, yes, I did it, that keep us going.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of dopamine, it actually plays a huge role in motivation. And setting unrealistic goals can actually backfire when it comes to dopamine.
Really? How so? Tell me more.
So when we set, like, overly ambitious goals and then we inevitably fall short, we're basically setting ourselves up for a dopamine crash. And when those dopamine levels dip, it makes us feel, well, less motivated to try again in the future.
Oh, so it's like we're setting ourselves up for a cycle of disappointment and demotivation. Fascinating. So how can we use this dopamine thing, to our advantage when it comes to goal setting?
Well, one way is to focus on those small wins we were talking about. By breaking down those goals into, manageable chunks and then, celebrating those milestones, we're actually creating a series of mini dopamine boosts,
Yeah.
and that keeps us feeling motivated and on track.
I love that. It's like giving yourself a series of mini rewards along the way. Instead of waiting for that one big payoff at the end, we're creating this sense of progress and accomplishment throughout the entire journey. Okay, let's move on to motivation mistake number 4. Neglecting the power of intrinsic motivation.
Yes, this is a big one.
Yeah.
And it's all about tapping into the why behind your goals. It's the difference between doing something because you have to and doing it because you genuinely love it.
Right. So extrinsic motivation is like chasing those external rewards.
Yeah.
The promotion, the praise, maybe the bigger paycheck.
Yeah.
But intrinsic motivation, that's more about the joy of the journey itself.
You got it. And Deci and Ryan, they're these pioneers in this field called self-determination theory, and they found that intrinsic motivation, it's way more powerful and way more sustainable for long-term goals. Think about it this way. Extrinsic rewards, they can definitely be motivating in the short term. But if you're not enjoying the process, it's going to be so much harder to stay motivated over time.
It's like, forcing yourself to go for a run because you feel like you should
Yeah.
versus like lacing up your shoes because you genuinely love that feeling of, the wind in your hair, those endorphins
Yeah.
pumping through your body.
Exactly. When you're intrinsically motivated, the activity itself becomes the reward.
Okay, I love this. But how do we tap into that internal drive? How do we connect with our why?
Mm.
I'm all ears.
Well, start by asking yourself, why does this actually matter to me? What are the values, that are driving my actions? Really take the time to, dig deep and connect with those deeper reasons behind your
I
goals.
love that. It's not just going through the motions, right? It's
Yeah.
aligning your actions with what truly matters to you, with your passions.
Yes, exactly. And once you've, connected with your why, you can actually start to make those tasks more intrinsically rewarding. Try to find ways to make them more enjoyable. Maybe you can gamify your to-do list or, find creative solutions to problems or even just focus on the learning and growth aspects of the task.
It's like finding ways to make those tasks feel more meaningful and personally rewarding. Finding that sweet spot where your passions and your goals actually align. Okay, this has been so eye-opening already. We've tackled willpower, taking action, setting those SMART goals, and now finding our why. But there's one more piece of the motivation puzzle we need to talk about, right?
Yes, you're right. And this one might surprise you. It's the connection between our physical and emotional well-being and our motivation levels. We often think of motivation as like purely a mental game, but our bodies actually play a huge role.
Oh, totally. It's like expecting to, crush a presentation after an all-nighter fueled by coffee and leftover pizza. It's not exactly a recipe for peak performance.
Not at all. So let's dive into some specific strategies for fueling those motivation engines. What are some of the non-negotiables, when it comes to physical and emotional well-being?
I'm all ears. Let's hear it.
First things first, prioritize sleep. Aim for like 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep every single night. It's during sleep, that our brains consolidate memories, repair tissues, and just recharge for the day ahead.
It's like hitting the reset button for your mind and body. It's
Yeah.
no wonder we feel so sluggish and, unmotivated when we're sleep deprived.
Right.
Okay, next up, fuel your brain with proper nutrition. Focus on those foods that are rich in, like omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, and complex carbohydrates to, provide sustained energy and support your cognitive function.
Got it. So ditch the sugary, processed stuff and opt for, brain-boosting foods like salmon, blueberries, and leafy greens.
Exactly. And, don't underestimate the power of exercise. When you engage in regular physical activity, it releases this cascade of like mood-boosting endorphins and, you guessed it, dopamine.
There's that motivation molecule again. What's so special about dopamine?
Okay, so dopamine is like a key player in our reward and pleasure centers, right?
Hmm.
It's also deeply involved in motivation, focus, and even procrastination. Remember those small wins we were talking about? Well, those trigger dopamine release, which reinforces those positive behaviors. But research has actually shown that when dopamine levels are low in certain areas of the brain, it can make even simple tasks seem overwhelming, and that actually contributes to procrastination. Interesting. So if we want to boost our motivation, we need to find ways to boost those dopamine levels naturally.
Exactly. And there are tons of simple, enjoyable ways to do that. We've already talked about, setting those small, achievable goals, celebrating those wins, but also like engaging in new challenges, learning new things. These are great ways to stimulate dopamine production.
Oh, so like picking up a new hobby, traveling to a new place, or even just like trying a new recipe can actually give our motivation a boost.
Absolutely. And don't forget about music. Music and creative activities both have been shown to like really enhance those dopamine levels and put us in a more positive, motivated state.
Okay, so blasting my favorite tunes while I work or like spending some time drawing or painting can actually boost my motivation. I'm sold.
Awesome. And finally, let's not forget about stress management. Chronic stress, it depletes our energy reserves, throws those hormones out of whack, and it just makes it so much harder to feel motivated.
Stress is definitely a motivation killer. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
So what are some effective ways to combat stress and protect our motivation?
Practices like meditation, deep breathing, yoga, spending time in nature, these have all been shown to lower those stress hormones and just improve your emotional resilience overall.
Yeah. It's like giving our nervous systems a much needed break so we can, recharge and come back to our goals with renewed energy and focus.
Exactly. It's all about creating this holistic approach to motivation, recognizing that our minds and bodies are totally interconnected.
I love that. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive so far.
Right.
We've learned that motivation is a skill, right? It's something
Yeah.
we can develop. It's not just like this elusive quality that some people have and others don't.
And by understanding the science behind motivation, we can actually start to, make conscious choices that support our goals and help us stay on track even when things get tough.
We've busted some major myths about willpower, learned the importance of taking action, setting SMART goals, connecting with our why, and we got a crash course in the power of dopamine. and why taking care of our physical and emotional well-being is non-negotiable, for sustained motivation.
Exactly. It's about creating a sustainable approach.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but I know there's more to this story.
You're right. There's one more fascinating aspect of motivation we haven't explored yet, the role of our beliefs and mindsets.
Ooh, I can't wait to dive into that. How does what we believe actually shape our motivation? We'll have to find out in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into all things motivation.
I'm so excited to continue this conversation. We've already busted some serious motivation myths and uncovered some pretty powerful strategies for really amping up our drive. But now I'm really curious to explore this whole idea of how our beliefs actually shape our motivation.
Yeah, it's an important piece of the puzzle. Your beliefs are like these filters that kind of influence how you see the world and especially how you approach challenges.
So if you believe that you're not like capable of achieving something, you're less likely to even try in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And then it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. But the good news is you can actually shift those beliefs.
That's where this concept of mindset comes in, right?
Hmm.
I've heard so much about the power of having a growth mindset, and I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah, and you're probably thinking of the work of Carol Dweck. She's a Stanford psychologist who's done some seriously groundbreaking research on the topic of mindsets.
Okay, yeah, that name rings a bell. So remind me, what's the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset?
All right, so with a fixed mindset, you kind of believe that your abilities are set in stone, that they can't really change. So you might see challenges as these threats to your ego, and you tend to avoid situations where you might, fail.
Oh, so you're more likely to give up easily, thinking, I'm just not good at this, so why bother? I'm just not a math person, or I'm just not creative, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But on the other hand, if you have a growth mindset, you believe that your abilities can actually be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. So you see challenges as opportunities to get better, even if it means, making mistakes along the way.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
If you believe you can improve, you're more likely to put in the work and keep going, even when things get tough.
Right. And here's the really cool thing. Research has actually shown that people with a growth mindset, they are way more likely to achieve their goals.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty compelling evidence. So how do we actually cultivate this growth mindset? What are some steps we can take to start shifting our beliefs?
Well, the first step is just becoming aware of your self-talk. Start noticing those negative thoughts that creep in, like those "I can't" or "I'm not good enough" statements.
Oh, yeah. The inner critic, right. Mine can be pretty loud sometimes.
Yeah, it happens to all of us. But that's why it's so important to challenge those thoughts. Ask yourself, is this really true? What evidence do I have to support this belief?
And then I guess you can try to reframe those negative thoughts into more positive, empowering ones. So instead of I'm going to fail, it's I'm going to learn from this experience.
Love it. That's perfect. Another really powerful technique is to focus on effort and progress, not just outcomes.
Oh, that's good. So instead of beating ourselves up for not being perfect, we celebrate the small wins and acknowledge how far we've come.
Yes, exactly. And remember, setbacks, they are inevitable. Everyone experiences setbacks. But it's how we respond to those setbacks that really matters.
So with a growth mindset, you see those setbacks as opportunities to learn and adjust your approach, not as signs that you should just give up.
You got it. One more tip, surround yourself with people who support your growth. Find mentors, friends, colleagues, people who believe in you and encourage you to stretch beyond your comfort zone.
It's like having a cheerleading squad for your motivation. That kind of support system can make such a huge difference. Okay, so I want to shift gears a bit here. Can we talk about purpose, our sense of meaning and why we're here on this planet?
Absolutely. Research has shown that people who have a strong sense of purpose, they are more resilient, more motivated, and they just experience greater well-being overall.
It's like having that guiding star, right? Something that helps you navigate life's challenges and stay focused on what really matters.
Yeah, you got it. And when your actions are aligned with your values and your sense of purpose, motivation becomes less of a struggle and more of a natural flow.
That sounds incredible. But honestly, figuring out my purpose can feel kind of intimidating sometimes. It's such a big question.
I hear you. It is. It's a journey of self-discovery, and it's going to be different for everyone. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
So where do we even begin? What are some questions we can ask ourselves to get those purpose juices flowing?
One really powerful question to start with is, what makes me come alive? You know, what are the activities that make you lose track of time and just fill you with energy and joy?
I love that question. It's about identifying those things that light you up from the inside out.
Right. And another really helpful question is, what problems in the world do I feel really passionate about solving?
So it's about tapping into our values and finding ways to, like, make a positive impact on the world around us.
Exactly. And don't forget to reflect on your past experiences. What are some of the challenges you've overcome, and what did you learn from them?
Oh, yeah. Our experiences, both the positive and the negative ones, they really shape who we are, and they can offer some, like, really valuable clues about our purpose.
And remember, finding your purpose, it's not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. It's about exploration and evolution.
It's okay if we don't have all the answers right away.
Right.
It's about being open to new experiences and allowing our purpose to unfold over time.
Yeah. And here's the beauty of it. The more you connect with your purpose, the more motivated you'll naturally become to take action and really make a difference.
So purpose fuels motivation. It
Yeah.
gives you that extra push to keep going when things get tough.
I love that. Okay, is there anything else we can do to like really supercharge our motivation?
Actually, there is. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on another important piece of the puzzle: social connection.
Oh, social connection. How does that tie into motivation? We know it's important for our well-being in general, but I'm curious to hear like how it actually affects our drive.
So we are, like, fundamentally social creatures, right?
Mhm.
And our relationships play a huge role in our overall well-being.
And research has shown those strong social connections, they're essential for both our physical and mental health.
Yes. And here's the thing. Social connection, it can also be a seriously powerful motivator.
Okay, I'm really intrigued now. Tell me more. Like, give me the science behind it. So when we feel connected to others, our brains actually release oxytocin. It's often called the bonding hormone.
Oxytocin, right. That's that, like, feel-good hormone that promotes feelings of trust and empathy and connection. Right?
Exactly. And it turns out that oxytocin, it actually plays a role in motivation as well.
Oh, wow. I had
Yeah.
no idea. So when we feel loved and supported and connected to others, we're actually more likely to feel motivated to pursue our goals.
Yes. It's like having this built-in support system that's cheering you on and, helping you stay on track.
That makes so much sense. When we feel isolated and alone, it's way easier to, like, lose motivation.
Hmm.
But when we have people who believe in us, it gives us that extra boost to keep going. So how do we, like, strengthen those social connections and actually harness that motivational power?
Well, first of all, prioritize quality time with the people you love. Put down your phone, turn off the TV, and really engage in those meaningful conversations.
It's about being present and truly connecting with the people who matter most. What else?
Join groups or communities that share your interests. It could be a book club, a sports team, a volunteer organization, anything that gets you interacting with people who share your passions.
It's about finding your tribe,
Yeah.
those people who really understand and support you.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to reach out to others. Make an effort to connect with new people, whether it's like, striking up a conversation with a stranger or reconnecting with an old friend.
Sometimes all it takes is a smile or a kind gesture to, like, spark a connection,
Mm,
and that can really boost our sense of belonging, right?
you got it. And remember, social connection, it isn't just about quantity, it's really about quality. So focus on building those authentic, supportive relationships that, nourish your soul and really fuel your motivation.
This has been such an awesome exploration of, like, some of the hidden forces that really drive motivation.
Mhm.
We've uncovered the power of our beliefs, the importance of finding our purpose, and now this motivational boost that comes from really nurturing those social connections.
And you know what? While we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, there's actually one more piece of the motivation puzzle that we need to address. It's the impact of our environment.
Ooh, okay, I'm intrigued. How does our environment actually shape our motivation? I mean, I know things like, a tidy workspace and good lighting can take a difference, but is there more to it than that?
Oh, there's so much more to it, and I think you'll be surprised by just how much power your environment really has. But to find out more, you'll have to stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we're back, and I am so ready to hear all about how our environment can impact our motivation, like you were saying.
All right, well, get ready to be amazed because your environment, like both the physical space and the people around you, it really has a huge impact on how motivated you feel. It's kind of like, You wouldn't try to grow a plant in a dark, cramped closet, right?
No, of course not. You'd want to give it, plenty of sunlight,
Right.
space to grow, and all the nutrients it needs to thrive.
Exactly. And your motivation, it needs that kind of environment to thrive too.
Okay, so it's not just about having a nice desk and a comfy chair then.
It's definitely more than that. It's about being intentional, about creating a space that actually supports your goals, reduces those pesky distractions, and ideally even sparks a little bit of joy. So think about your workspace for a minute. Is it like super cluttered and chaotic, or is it, organized and inviting?
Well, I know when my desk is a disaster zone, I'm way more likely to get distracted. It's like a recipe for procrastination.
And there's a reason for that. Clutter, it actually competes for your attention, making it harder to really focus on getting things done.
It's like my brain is trying to process all that visual noise
Yeah.
and it just drains all my mental energy.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the simplest but often most overlooked ways to boost your motivation is to just declutter and organize your workspace.
Music to my ears. Time for some spring cleaning, I guess.
Yeah.
Out with the old, in with the inspiring, organized vibes.
I love that. And while you're at it, don't forget about the power of natural light. Studies have actually shown that exposure to sunlight can do wonders for your mood, improve your sleep quality, and can even increase your productivity.
Okay, so swap that dimly lit corner for a sun-drenched spot by the window. Got it.
Exactly. And, if you can't get access to natural light, try using a full spectrum light bulb because those mimic natural sunlight pretty well.
Yeah, I've heard those are really helpful, especially in the winter, when it's like dark all the time.
Totally. Okay, shifting gears a bit here. Let's talk about sound. I'm a big believer in the power of music to boost focus and motivation. I know when I'm working, music is a must-have.
Me too. It really helps me get in the zone.
And there's actually some science behind that. Certain types of music can actually increase those dopamine levels and enhance cognitive function. Remember we were talking about dopamine earlier?
Oh yeah, it's like our brains love a good beat.
Right. So put on some upbeat tunes or
Mhm.
maybe even some calming nature sounds to create like a soundtrack for success.
Love it. I'm already feeling more motivated just thinking about it. Okay, but what about this? Can our sense of smell actually impact motivation too?
It really can. Aromas like citrus or peppermint, those have actually been shown to improve alertness and focus.
Oh, wow. I'm already picturing a diffuser in my workspace, filling the air with the invigorating scent of lemon or maybe the refreshing aroma of pine.
Sounds amazing. And while we're creating this amazing sensory experience, let's not forget about the power of personalization.
Oh, you mean like adding your own unique touch to your workspace?
Exactly. Surround yourself with things that inspire you, whether it's plants, artwork, photos of loved ones, little things that make you happy. Those little touches can really make a big difference in how you feel and how motivated you are.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It's about creating a space that feels like truly yours, a space that reflects your personality and your goals, a space that feels both comfortable and energizing.
Okay, but what about our digital environment? I mean, our phones, our computers, all those apps that are constantly vying for our attention, those can be pretty distracting too.
Oh, absolutely. And just like a cluttered desk can drain your mental energy, so can a cluttered digital space.
Oh, yeah, so true. So time to declutter those inboxes, organize those endless files, and maybe even rethink our, sometimes not so healthy social media habits.
Exactly. You want to be really intentional with how you're using technology, making sure that it's actually serving you, not the other way around.
Right. So maybe it's unsubscribing from those email lists that just don't do it for you anymore, curating your social media feeds to reduce negativity, maybe even setting some limits on when and how you use your phone, right?
Exactly. It's all about reclaiming control over your time and attention and creating a digital environment that actually supports your well-being and your goals. Love that. Okay, so we've talked about our physical space, our digital space. Now, what about our social environment? The people we spend our time with, they must have some kind of impact on our motivation too, right?
You are so right. As much as you can optimize your physical and digital spaces, the people you surround yourself with, they can make or break your motivation.
Yeah, I get that. I know that being around negative or, just unsupportive people can really drain my energy. It makes it way harder to stay on track with my goals.
And remember when we talked about the power of social connection earlier? Well, it's worth emphasizing that the quality of those connections really matters.
Oh, so it's not just about having a ton of friends or followers. It's about having those meaningful relationships, those connections with people who uplift you, who inspire you, and who challenge you to grow.
Exactly. Surrounding yourself with people who share your values, who support your goals, and who genuinely believe in your potential can be so incredibly motivating.
Yeah, it's like having your own personal cheerleading squad,
Yeah.
right? Always there to root you on. But I'm guessing the opposite is true too, right? Like if you're constantly surrounded by negative people, those energy vampires, it can be really detrimental to your motivation.
Absolutely. In those cases, setting some boundaries with those people, or maybe even, limiting contact with them, can be crucial for protecting your own motivation and well-being.
It's about being proactive,
Yeah.
right? It's about creating a social circle that nourishes your soul and really supports your growth.
Any other tips for like creating that supercharged social environment?
I would say don't be afraid to seek out mentors or role models who you admire.
Oh, I love that. So it's about finding those people who have achieved what you aspire to achieve, learning from their experiences and letting their success fuel your own motivation.
Yes. Learning from their stories, their journeys, the wisdom they've gained along the way, all of that can be so incredibly motivating. Yeah. So reach out to those people you admire, attend their workshops, read their books, or even just observe how they do things. You never know what you might learn.
Exactly. And, creating that supportive, inspiring environment, both physically and socially, it's an ongoing process, right? It's something you have to keep working at.
It's about being mindful of your surroundings, making adjustments as needed, and just constantly seeking out ways to optimize your space and your relationships for maximum motivation.
And here's the best part. As you create an environment that supports your goals, you naturally become more motivated to actually pursue them. It creates this beautiful, positive feedback loop that can lead to, like, some really amazing growth and fulfillment.
Oh my gosh, this whole deep dive has been incredible. We've uncovered so much about how motivation actually works, how to overcome those common mistakes that we all make, and really how to create a life that's filled with purpose and passion and drive.
And, the biggest takeaway here is that motivation, it's not something that just happens to you. It's a skill you can cultivate, a choice you make every single day.
I love that. So by understanding the science, adopting those, empowering beliefs, setting clear goals, taking care of our well-being, and designing an environment that really supports our success, we can unlock our full potential and achieve some pretty amazing things.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been so great having this conversation with you today.
The pleasure was all mine.
And thanks to all of you for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of motivation. We'll see you next time.